Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is directed by James Gunn and stars Chris Pratt, Bradley Cooper, and Chagwoodi Avuchi. Still reeling from the loss of Gamora, the Guardians set out on a mission to save their fellow team member and billions of lives in the process. I remember seeing the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie in 2014 in theaters and being absolutely blown away by it. I mean, it was Marvel, so obviously being a nerdy teenager, of course I was going to see it, but I didn't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy. But after seeing it, my God, nearly everything about that movie was perfect and came out at the exact time that Marvel needed it to. Even though I don't love Guardians 2 as much as I loved Guardians 1, I still very much enjoyed it. I thought the acting was great, I thought the visuals were great, and I thought the comedy was great in small doses. I really do think this was one of the first big factors that led to Marvel's now classic and infamous comedy. But with that said, it still was extremely good. Needless to say, I love these characters so much. I loved them in the movies, I loved them in the Avengers films, I loved them in the holiday special. I love these characters so much that if they were in the worst movie imaginable, not only would I still go to see that movie, but I would still like it more than I should because I just love seeing these guys together. With that said, however, even though I love seeing all of these guys together in this movie, and I would have seen it regardless, the fact that the movie itself is fantastic already is an added bonus. I loved this movie so much. This was the first time since No Way Home that I walked out of a Marvel movie completely speechless. I loved nearly every single second of this film. I already said what I loved most about this movie before I even started talking about this movie. The characters and the chemistry. Everything about this group of people on screen is incredible. Each one of them has such well-defined personalities and work so well off of each other that they truly do feel like not just a group of friends just coming together, they feel like a true-to-heart family. Literally, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, so many of my, yep, this is going to be awesome check marks were set off. And the first one was that chemistry. The other check mark? The effects. Now, even though Marvel is well known for having pretty good effects overall, there has been this sort of infamy around the more recent installments of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that have pointed out some of its lesser effects. And even though I wouldn't go as far as to say that Marvel effects suck now, yeah, there are a lot of obvious bad ones. In my opinion, there was not a single bad visual effect in the entire movie. Everything looked so imaginative and at some point so realistic, especially when we're focusing on Rocket and his backstory in the film. Every single detail on him and his friends, from the fur to the eyes to the more metallic coverings on them, looks so good and so realistic. Third check mark, the soundtrack. Yes, just like literally every single other Guardians movie, and for the most part, every single James Gunn movie, period, the soundtrack in this film is awesome. Not only just like the last two Guardians movies do you have a bunch of great 70s and 80s music to go along with it, but you also have the added bonus of a couple random 2000s rock songs in there, which when I first heard it, I was like, really? We're doing this? But the more I heard the soundtrack, the more I was like, yeah, all of these songs are great, so why am I complaining? And the fourth checkmark, again, typical James Gunn-ism, the comedy. The comedy in this movie is so good, even though there are a couple bits that go on for maybe just a bit too long. I would say that 95% of the jokes that are swung in this movie are home runs. And going back to all of my praise about the characters, the chemistry, and the acting in this film, there are really three that truly stand out above the rest. One is Rocket, for obvious reasons. Even though he's not in a ton of the movie, for the most part, his backstory is the forefront of the story. And the more you see it, oh my god, it's so good. You understand Rocket so much more. And the more you see him throughout the last third of the movie, the more you're just so attached to his character. I heard people in my theater throughout the entire movie crying at many points of Rocket's story. And even though I wasn't one of those people crying throughout the whole movie, I cried at one scene. There was one scene that got to me. And you all know what that scene was. The second standout character, the High Evolutionary, the villain of the whole movie. And even though, yeah, he does slide into one of my least favorite parts of being a villain, and that is, if you're constantly yelling, I never feel like you're in power. And even though there are a lot of times where the High Evolutionary speaks in very low tones, there are a lot of points where he just randomly screams. With that said, however, he is a terrifying main villain and the most terrifying mad scientist type character that you could imagine. He has no sympathy for anyone, you have no sympathy for him, and even though you have no sympathy for him and he has no sympathy for others, his motivation is very understandable. Not that I am condoning anything he does, but you do see the logic, the no emotion whatsoever logic behind his thinking. He's kind of like Thanos if you just took away any emotion that made Thanos in the least bit sympathetic and just tweaked his end goal just a tad bit. That's the High Evolutionary, and even though I don't think he's one of my all-time favorite Marvel villains, he's still a great one. And the third standout character is Adam Warlock. Even though if you're a comics fan, you're going to notice that he is significantly depowered as compared to his comic counterpart, Will Poulter nails this character. Not only does he look exactly like him, not only is he so powerful that it's actually both intimidating and kind of hilarious at times, but Will Poulter plays him like this overgrown baby so much that you just love seeing him. And to be fair, Adam Warlock is not in the movie a ton, but every single time he's on screen, I kind of loved it. As for flaws for me, this is where the movie gets a bit nitpicky. There are characters that make stupid decisions. Not every joke lands 100% bullseyes. And I already said my problem with the High Evolutionary, which even though I liked him overall, there are times when he's constantly yelling that he just loses all intimidation. With that said, those nitpicks are my really only flaws with the movie as a whole. I loved this film so much. The actors are fantastic and work perfectly off of each other. The characters are identifiable and you love seeing them together. The effects are great, the soundtrack is awesome, and the action's pretty cool too. There are a couple nitpicks that I have with some of the writing, but nothing that damages my enjoyment of the film in the slightest. This is damn near as perfect of an ending to a trilogy that Marvel could have made, and for that, you really do have to applaud them. I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 an A. Again, a couple nitpicks and tweaks, but overall, nothing major. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, which of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies is your favorite? For me, even though I love Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I really do enjoy Guardians 2, I don't think you can downplay just how much Guardians 1 made an impact on not just the MCU, but on pop culture in general. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.